Welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. When you're ready to transform your sales for today's transforming market, we've got you covered with your host, the queen of cold calling and founder of Salesology, award-winning author, speaker, sales trainer, and coach, Wendy Weiss.
Hi, welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. And I'm your host, Wendy Weiss. I am the founder of Salesology and creator of the Salesology prospecting method. I'm also known as the queen of cold calling. And today, my very special guest is Dinero Bartolini. He is the CEO of The Remote CEO. And Dinero has been a digital entrepreneur for 2 decades. He has been a podcaster for 14 years. I'm going to have to talk to him about that. He is an Amazon best-selling author and a remote work consultant. His moonshot is to change the world of work by enabling small businesses to retain control of their marketing. And I'm going to have to ask him about that as well. So welcome, Dinero.
Hey, Wendy. It's a pleasure for me to be here today.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being here today. So let's begin at the beginning where I always begin. Give us the backstory. How did you become the remote CEO?
Great question. Thanks for asking. I am split between Europe and Canada. I actually was born and raised in Europe, moved to Canada, lived there for 2 decades, and then realized that if I wanted to have a stable job, so to speak, in an office, I needed to give up a part of me, whether it was my European family and friends or my North American one. And so the only solution that came to mind back then, almost 2 decades ago, was let me leverage this new thing called the internet that back then was very cool, but not nearly as cool as it is today. And slowly started putting one brick on top of the other until, fast forward about 16, 17 years. And now we are living the remote lifestyle. My wife and I and my kid, we go between Canada and the United States, Italy, and we are having a great time running our business remotely.
Okay. So when you talk about running a business remotely, I am assuming that you are not talking about, before COVID, most people would go into an office and then COVID hit and all of a sudden everybody was working from home. And now a lot of businesses have some combination of work at home, come into the office, but that's not what you're talking about, right?
No.
What is the difference between this kind of post-COVID typical work situation and what you are describing, what you are talking about?
Again, great question. And the answer lies in a simple principle, which is you just want to be independent from the location. Like literally anything that we do at the remote CEO in my business and even in my life I need to be able to do it from wherever I want at any point in time, which means all my staff members are sourced literally worldwide. I have staff in the Philippines, India, Pakistan, Bulgaria, Egypt, Ghana, South Africa, and the list goes on. And the reason why I do that is because we're able to do things that other localized business or even businesses that are split between local and online are not able to do. We have, for example, 24/7 support. With a very simple system of hiring people in different time zones that work their 8 hours, but once one stops, the other one starts. And we're able to do these things for businesses that are, for example, very small, and they never thought that would have been possible. And we set up these systems for less than about $1,200 a month, and they're able to do these things. So yes, it's about working from home or working remotely, but it's also about creating as many automations and leveraging different time zones as well as different pay rates to get people to work for you in a way that helps them. And I do want to talk about this, helps the employees, but also obviously helps the business.
Okay. So then let's talk about helping employees. I like that topic.
Okay, so I started my agency back in the day, and I started hiring friends locally, and I tried to see if they could work remotely. Needless to say, it was a disaster because a lot of people that I knew were people that came from the office space, like on like corporate, like big office. And then when they started working online, just because they had more freedom. And for the listeners, I am doing the quotation marks with my fingers because it is not the real reason why you should start and aspire to work remotely. And it was a disaster. And so what I started looking at, I was like, how can I work with someone that actually truly appreciates the opportunity of working for a company like mine? And so I started looking again in the Philippines and in Bulgaria and other places, and I realized that there is a lot of people, young people, not so young people, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of people that have perfect knowledge of English, written and even spoken English. They are going above and beyond to look for a position where they can excel in a North American style, Western style business. And what I've done is simply look for these people over the years and kind of give them a fair share of our profits. Some of the people that I work with, they get even 10% of our sales. And you can imagine in a high ticket environment, 10% could mean that they could make $3,000-$4,000 a month just because they're getting commission from us. And so we've seen families, people that have, like husbands and wives, they actually like work with us at the Remote CEO as employees, but they take full ownership of the project because they see that, $2,000-$3,000 going to a family in the Philippines is going to make a much bigger impact and dent in their lifestyle than giving $2,000 to someone in the Bay Area or in Toronto, even where we're from. And so that's what I just wanted to mention before. I said, help getting people from different areas, paying them well above their, the average salary in their area. Obviously, finding the right people that are willing to go above and beyond. But once you find them, you'll have almost like a family that you're working with. We have had this relationship since 2018. It's now we have like several full-time people, but we started, it was just like 2 or 3 of us. And what we found that is, if you look back, the same clients from 2017, they're still sticking. 2 or 3 employees, unless they changed because they literally have to, they're still sticking around. And so I feel like that's a testament to the fact that we're trying to build something that it's not only about us, but also about the employees overseas.
Okay. So how do you go about finding these people?
There are different ways that we do that. Obviously, the easier one to do if you are just looking for fast point from point A to point B, it could be platforms like Upwork or Fiverr. That's the obvious stuff. Then there are other platforms that are, for example, one is called, I don't remember now. I will let you know in a second. But the idea is that a lot of people from all over the world go on this platform because they want to work for free in exchange for mentorship. And so they're trying to do paid internships. And so there's a platform that actually gets all these individuals from all over the world that want to do paid, unpaid internships in exchange for mentorship. And so that's a platform that I used to go to quite a bit. And it's we found like 3 or 4 fantastic people. One specifically that we're currently working on is someone in Cairo, Egypt. He wanted to get started in video editing, and we onboarded him as a video editor. But because he was on this platform, I already knew that he was an action taker. This is no common platform. I will tell you the name in a second. But it's not a common platform. He went out of his way to find a platform where he's not going to get paid. He's just doing it to get experience. And so now you kind of understand who these people are already, above and beyond go-getters. And the idea is that we told him, hey, what are you trying to do? And he's like, oh, I want to build my own agency. And I'm like, hey, I've done that already. So if you do want to stick with me, not only for the 3 months that this contract gives you within this platform, but even after. And so now it's been 2.5 years. He's built some of the greatest systems within my business, and he's on commission. He feels like family. And like, again, we nurtured this relationship from when he was simply making videos to now that he's almost ready to launch his own business.
Okay. I think my question, platforms are great, but my question, and maybe I didn't ask it as clearly as I should have, but my question is more about this screening process to identify people, okay. Yeah. Because a platform's just a platform. And I know how difficult it can be to find the right people to come into an office,
Oh,
let alone in another country.
No, I agree with you. Do apologize. I thought that you're talking about the platform. So we have several ways. Obviously, we have screening questions that we ask. There are a lot of open-ended questions. I hate multiple choice questions because it becomes of like a kind of luck of the draw. We don't want that. We ask situational questions where every answer they actually need to use our 3 core values. First one is critical thinking, attention to detail, in problem solving. If every one of the questions that gets answered, one of these 3 elements are missing, we just completely discard that. Another point is that I wrote that in my book too. It's the letter itself or the job posting itself that needs to be the kind of tool that you use to get people to either reply or not reply. What we do is we create a high expectation job posting. We tell them right away, hey, our schedule is crazy sometimes. We're scaling fast. We don't like mistakes. Pretend that you're flying a plane. You don't make a mistake every like 10 flights. You don't get to do that. You just get to fly the plane and be careful and never make a mistake. And if you don't know how to triple check or quadruple check, we can teach you, but you got to be ready to be taught. If you don't like this kind of environment, please do not, in big letters, apply to this company. We do not want to work with you. And so the idea is that we get less applicants, but at the same time, obviously, after I give them the bad, I also give them the good, which is if you stick around with us, you're going to have revenue share. You're going to be in a position to be in revenue generating roles. So you have full control over your income. You're going to have full mentorship. We have weekly phone calls where we do mentorship with our own team members and talking about even their businesses. I don't care. I'm actually I'm happier if I have to work with a entrepreneurial minded individual that's going to leave for sure in 3-4 years, but I know that they're here to learn and to make my business better. And so I'm ready to let them slowly transition out of their role when they're ready to spread their own wings. But I hate working with people that are coming in because it's a remote job. If someone ever asks me or tells me, I want this job because it's a remote job, tell them, thank you, go somewhere else. This is not the reason why we want people to like our position.
Okay, so we've been talking about employees, but let's switch gears for a minute and talk about the small business owners, because in your bio, you told us all that your moonshot is to change the world of work by enabling small businesses to retain control of their marketing. So I'm curious, what are the mistakes that you see small business owners making that loses control of their marketing?
Out of sight, out of mind. I think that the mentality of out of sight, out of mind is what kills people's marketing budgets, but also sales process. Anything that goes that goes into business needs to be measured, needs to be understood, and needs to be fixed. Just like Ray Dalio says at Bridgewaters, he says, you can't not stand mistakes. You can't not stand things that don't work in your business. If your culture is a culture of acceptance when it comes to these small mistakes here and there, you're going to fail. And I say the same thing when it comes to marketing. If you think that hiring an agency is your solution to your marketing, it's like you saying that you kind of, want to, like have a great life, but you're going to pay someone else to organize it all. And then you're going to complain if you don't like the food or the sports that they chose for you and everything else. I do believe that business owners are busy. And I am the first one to say you should not be wearing all hats. But what I can tell you by experience after running an agency and after running a consultancy is that people that scale fast have total control over their moves in a short term. They're nimble. Let me give you another example. If you're sending out emails and we do cold email, right? Cold email outreach. We send about 1,500 emails every single day. Bam, bam, bam. What happens is 1% of people reply. We get on about 15 to 30 conversations a day. And out of those, 6 to 8 turn into phone calls, okay? If I was telling an agency, hey, do this for me, okay? And they're going to do it. They're going to probably contact you a couple of months down or a couple of weeks down the road and tell you, well, we sent 1,500, like 20,000 emails and we only get like 3 answers. Okay. And then time back and forth, back and forth. Who's going to write the copy? And if they write the copy, is it going to be in alignment with what you've written and talked about in your business in the past? Does it speak your language, your niche's language? So it begs the question, are you going to work with a niche down agency that only works with your, with your niche, or you go with an agency that maybe has more experience, but less with your niche? These are all questions that you're asking while your budget gets burnt. Okay. Now, what I'm telling you is, if you have the ability to manage a business, I am sure that you're going to have the ability to manage 1 or 2 virtual assistants that are now internal to your team, that possibly hop on your own meetings every single day, that they have time to assimilate everything from the brand content, reading your blog posts, listening to your podcasts, consuming your content, doing everything that you do on a daily basis in your business, and then use that knowledge to run your ads or get your own podcast, get you PR, write your social media posts, and doing everything else like that. Now, if it was the problem that I hear a lot of people say is like, well, I don't want to pay an $80,000 marketing manager in New York or somewhere else. And I tell you that if you do want to get to that level, I hope you get there. But in the meantime, there is a ton of other people that will be more than happy to do the same exact work for a fraction of the cost and internal to you. So they are actually rooting for you instead of trying to get money from you at the end of the month.
Okay. So I want to come back to a few of the things that you mentioned. I want to ask you about podcasting, since you've been podcasting for so long. But we're going to pause for a word from our sponsor. And word from our sponsor today is the Salesology Vault. Just about every guest that I've interviewed on the Salesology Conversations with Sales Leaders podcast has had a gift for our listeners, and that does include my special guest, Dinero Bartolini, CEO of The Remote CEO. And what we've done is we've taken all of those gifts and we put them all in one place just for you. We call it the Salesology Vault, and it's packed full of free gifts from sales leaders, sales experts, marketing gurus, revenue generation experts, and we add another gift every single week. We release a podcast every Monday, and when we release that podcast, we add a gift. So you can log in as often as you'd like and download as many gifts as you'd like. It's all free. The link to the Salesology Vault is in the show notes. So as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link. You'll be glad you did. And we are back with my special guest, Dinero Bartolini, who is the CEO of the Remote CEO. And I do want to talk to you a little bit about podcasting, because you have been podcasting for so many years, 14, I believe you told me. Yeah. And you were telling right before we hit record on this podcast, on this interview, you were telling me about a new program that you're launching. So could you share that with us?
Yeah, for sure. So if you do want to, I can address podcasting 1 second, and then I'll tell you a bit more about the program. So the Remote CEO it's episode 630 something, but it was not my first podcast. It's actually the second one. We started a music podcast, believe it or not, back in the day. And so my first experience doing everything about building audience and everything else was for music, because I used to make music. And then as soon as switched over to business, my next logical step when it came to branding was, why don't I use this skill that not a lot of businesses have now? Because back in the day, I don't know if you remember, like 2010, 2011, a lot of podcasts were also hosted on SoundCloud, which was mainly music stuff. And so that's where we used to podcast, and then slowly transition to my own platforms or like the other third-party tools that we use. But yeah, that was the reason why we got in podcasting. As soon as we opened a business, it was just inertia and my need to share my experiences on an audio track. Now, going to my new program. So it's called the Remote CEO Academy. We help businesses do exactly what I told you earlier, which is create sustainable marketing systems that are internal, that provide you agency results without spending agency money. And there's 6 systems. Five of them are brand building strategies, including podcast launch and management and podcast bookings. So that had to be on shows, on other people's shows. Then we have PR, we have social media management and SEO. And then the 6th system is cold email outreach. So that's the only direct marketing tool geared to get calls in your calendar on a consistent basis.
And let's go back to podcasting. Why podcasting? I mean, I'm doing a podcast, but I'm curious what your advice to your clients is, why they should start podcasting.
There's 2 main reasons. First off, and as a marketer, I always look at this when we try and make decisions for us and for everybody else. The first reason is we're trying to understand what we want to do. If you want to indoctrinate your audience into a new product or a service or a community, you want people that are interested in taking more steps, right? Now, I want to think about, as an example, Instagram. We have 47K followers on Instagram, so I did take it seriously as well, but I want to give you 2 examples. I can have 47,000 followers on Instagram, but for them, me seeing my posts on their feed is probably like 0.01% of their daily Instagram intake, okay? So in proportion, me being on Instagram, it's taking up this much sliver of their time, maybe like 3 seconds of their time. If it's a reel, maybe 20 seconds, 30 seconds of their time, when realistically they scroll and pass my feed and that's it, or my post and that's it. So that's Instagram, right? You wake up every day, you look good, you take videos, you do this, you do that, and then what? You are, again, 0.01% of someone's social media intake. Very, very small percentage. On the other end, podcasting, it's a totally different experience where people download an episode on their phone or computer, wherever they are. They generally listen to it while they're driving, while they're walking the dog, when they're washing dishes, when they're, I don't know, whatever they're doing, but they're actively listening to your episode. They're not scrolling through 10 episodes or 15 episodes. They could potentially do it, but it's a much longer timeline. It could be an hour where they do a podcast binge for an hour and they listen, let's say, 30-minute my episode, 30-minute your episode, maybe another 30 minutes. And so it's a 90-minute content intake. And so for the same amount of time, actually less, because if you do audio only, as you know, it's much easier to produce content if you have good ideas. But the amount of time that you end up on someone's feed or someone's ears, literally, is much longer. And so we find that we need a lot less downloads and a lot less hours to reach the same amount of people, and most importantly, to indoctrinate them. And that's the important part. The length of time that they spend listening to your content is directly related to how much they are interested in working with you in the future. If they just saw your post real quick on their feed and they scroll past it on Instagram, who cares? They already forgot about you. But if they listen to 2, 3, 4 episodes and they're still sticking around, there's a much higher chance of them wanting to know more about what you do, about possibly reading your book or purchasing your services.
Okay, that's why you should podcast. So, Dinero, I know that you have a gift for all of our listeners. So please share details.
Absolutely, Wendy. Like I was telling you before we pressed the record button, we have 2 types of phone calls that our clients or people that enter our ecosystems do. The first one is a simple 15-minute triage call. We also call it fit call. We have about 50 of these very short calls where we simply ask questions, and then we see if you're a good fit for a longer call where we try and sell you something. Let's put it this way. Then there is what I want your audience to go to, which is the 45-minute link for the agency terminator consultation. This is a full-blown consultation on how to automate and how to get rid of the need for agency retainers. So if someone books a call through this link, they will speak to either me or a CSM at the remote CO, telling them exactly the tools that they could use, the shortcuts that could take to get similar results, if not better, and the websites they can go to get the ball rolling. Then if you do want to book another call after, they're more than welcome to, but this is a full free consultation.
Okay, and so we are going to put the link for that free consultation in the show notes. So as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link, and schedule your consultation. And Dinero, where can people find you if, let's say, they're not quite ready for a consultation, but they want to connect with you? Where should people go?
Dinero B, so my name and my initial, so DENIERO as in Bartolini.com. DineroB.com. You'll find my podcast, my Instagram, my book, my blog, and everything else that you would like to read about me.
Okay. And Instagram, right?
Correct. As well, Instagram is a great place. Deniero B at Deniero B.
Okay. And we're going to put both of those links in the show notes. So if you'd like to connect with Dinero, either on Instagram or through his website, as soon as you finish listening to the podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link. And you have been listening to Salesology Conversations with Sales Leaders with my special guest, Dinero Bartolini, who is the CEO of The Remote CEO. And if you have found value in listening to today's podcast, then please think about one business owner, one entrepreneur, one sales leader, somebody that you know that you think would also find value in listening to this podcast. And please do share the link with them. And until we meet again, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, really large bills.
You've been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. Be sure to follow so that you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share it with your friends. Tune in every week for more exciting insights and wisdom on transforming sales. And until next time, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, very large bills.